Which brings us to the classical amendments, the two amendments that everybody loves to talk about: the freedom of speech, right? And the right to bear arms. We won't go into the right to bear arms, so we don't have time for that.
That's too bad we don't.
I often say you have a right to your opinion and you have a right to say it, but you're not free of the consequences if you lie to a large mass of people, if you deceive them. Because I think that's the playbook of a con man, and I'm sorry to say this, but Donald Trump is the master of all con men. This concept that, words have meanings, and your job is to tell the truth. And if you don't tell it, and it brings me to another thing. You remember from history the Hayes Edict, the Hayes Law?
Yeah, you're talking about
media.
Minorities. Yeah,
I think if I'm not mistaken, Hayes was even a Republican and fairly conservative. The story that I have in my mind was after World War II, there was a certain level of promiscuity, basically because of the chaos of war. People were sexually promiscuous and drinking. Near death experience kind of liberates you, and you kind of live for the moment, right? And this, I think it was Senator Hayes, was kind of concerned for the moral fortitude. And there's always been a struggle between the moral authority, the religious, and the Puritans and the more liberal. But he came up with this edict that basically stipulated if you have a radio show, if you have a TV show, which by the way back then cost a fortune to have, you couldn't just you couldn't just log into your computer and access 1 million people, right? You really needed an infrastructure, and that was expensive. But to be on air, you had to fulfill certain, and that's why, for example, a lot of Europeans says, "What, you can't see boobs or breasts on TV?" No, you can't. You can't say 4-lettered words in American TV, and very few people know this, but the Hayes Edict stipulated a moral code of behavior for TV. And most of us weren't aware of this, but every sitcom had some underlying moral message. Like friendship is important, family is important, family values, blood is thicker than water. If you make a mistake, you got to stand up for it. And if you say sorry, you can be absolved. If you were a bank robber, we all love to watch a good bank robbery movie, but under the Hayes Edict, the robbers could never live a happy ending. They were always caught in some effect. And this was the Hayes Edict. And most people didn't realize this consciously. What's amazing with the growth of social media is a massive influx of online pornography. Okay, I'm not even going to judge that. I mean, access galore. There's also a famous movie about Dick Cheney where one of the guys in there pitches to him. He says, "You know what? The whole concept of Fox News, which is not news, why not just create our own channel where we do our own news," which is also from a National Socialistic playbook. We just invent whatever we like, and people can say that's my truth, and those are your talking points and my talking points, and I'm surprised that, and I think it's partly fear. I'm surprised that leaders on both sides of the party line don't put their foot down and draw the line in the sand. Say, listen, you can say what you think, but if you say something about the fact that Sandy Hook didn't happen and it was a government playbook, we're going to sue the living hell out of you. We're going to I almost, if maybe I'm too reactionary, and maybe this is the old Republican talk. I believe that news, you can't use the word news unless you're legitimate news, and then you have to follow certain guidelines. And there should be a veracity score on the screen, which says how much of this, and another thing, you remember this. Remember Cronkite and Barbara Walters, and these were icons. These were moderators with backbone. But how often did they tell you their opinion?
Right.
I'm not interested in your opinion. I mean, you can kind of try to explain the causation of things, but I'm not interested in your opinion. And 90% of all news on both sides, MSNBC, CNN, it's a bunch of me people who are off the backs without a social conscience, are massively trying to manipulate people's opinion by propagating their own opinions. And I'm not interested. I want news.
Yeah, this is my personal opinion, but I think somebody's got to step up. And the only people that I can think of that could do this is the federal government to say, look, ABC, NBC, CBS, these are the owners of the news broadcasts. There will be 2 broadcasts every night, one in early evening, one in late evening. There'll be 30 minutes each. That's it. No one else can call themselves news because someone has got to get a handle on truth.
Yeah.
And it's not being done by any of the other networks.
I couldn't concur with you more. I just don't know. I think we would really need an incredibly charismatic leader. And I'm going to maybe take this from a different perspective. I think one of the reasons why Donald Trump is popular with so many people, because he's willing to do that the wrong way.
Yes. Yep.
You know what I once read a book on the history of demons and devils, what the tradition in history is, and one of the academic theories is that there's charisms or jinns that have different functions, and sometimes demons are there to test you, and to see, is this where to kind of a moral test. Sure. And I think one thing, what's that? Yeah. But I think the 2 on the shoulder. You know what I think that Donald Trump does is he really, I'm thinking of the German word. In German, it's called Vorführen, which means Vorführen is when you embarrass somebody for what they're not aware of what they're doing, or what they pretend like they're not doing, but they're doing. I think what Donald Trump is really good at is pointing out that there's a lot of things in the American culture that need to be revised, but his solution would be to do even more of it.
Yeah.
And the question is, will we learn from this situation?